Most people pray desperately, begging God to change their circumstances. They plead for healing, money, love, yet nothing transforms. This is the spiritual mistake that keeps 99% trapped in limitation. Joel Goldsmith discovered why prayers fail and revealed the secret that changes everything instantly: the mistake. Believing God is separate from you, that divine power exists out there, waiting to be convinced. This creates the very separation that blocks all manifestation. When you pray from lack, you reinforce lack. When you beg for healing, you confirm illness. The divine doesn't respond to desperation. Joel taught that God is not a person to petition, but the very consciousness you are. The moment you recognize your true identity as divine consciousness itself, everything shifts. You stop asking and start knowing. You cease begging and begin being. This recognition transforms prayer from pleading into powerful realization. This understanding revolutionized thousands of lives. People who struggled for years with illness, poverty, and relationship problems experienced instant breakthroughs, not through better asking, but through profound recognition of what they already are. The divine isn't coming to you, you are the divine expressing. Sarah struggled with chronic pain for 15 years. She prayed countless hours, visited every healer, tried every method. Nothing worked until she learned Joel's secret. Instead of asking God to heal her pain, she recognized that as divine consciousness, pain was impossible to her true nature. The shift was immediate. Within days, the pain that doctors called incurable began dissolving. Sarah didn't receive healing. She recognized she had never been separate from wholeness. The pain was real to the false sense of self, but impossible to her true spiritual identity. This recognition alone transformed her entire experience. This wasn't positive thinking or denial. This was spiritual fact. Joel taught that when you know yourself as divine consciousness, the conditions of human limitation cannot touch you. Disease, lack, and suffering exist only in the illusion of separation. Recognition of oneness dissolves all problems at their root. The key isn't changing your circumstances, but changing your identity. When you stop identifying as a struggling human and recognize yourself as divine consciousness expressing perfectly, your entire world transforms. This is why Joel's students experienced what others called miracles. They simply stopped believing in limitation. Divine consciousness doesn't have problems to solve because divine consciousness is the solution. When you identify with your true nature, you don't overcome challenges. You see they never existed in reality. This isn't metaphysical theory, but practical spiritual science that produces tangible results. Joel discovered that every problem exists only in the false sense of separation. The moment you recognize your oneness with divine life, intelligence, and love, the problem dissolves. Not through effort or struggle, but through the simple recognition of what is eternally true about you. Truth seen dissolves all error. Practice this recognition throughout your day. When faced with any challenge, don't ask God to fix it. Instead, silently know, I am divine consciousness. This apparent problem has no reality in my true being. Hold this recognition until you feel the shift from struggle to peace. Peace indicates truth. Start small. When you feel worried, recognize, divine consciousness cannot worry. When you feel lack, know, divine consciousness lacks nothing. When you feel sick, realize, divine consciousness is perfect health. This isn't affirmation, it's recognition of spiritual fact that transforms your entire experience. The transformation begins the moment you stop seeing yourself as separate from divine perfection. Joel taught that this recognition isn't something you achieve, it's something you accept. You don't become divine consciousness. You recognize you never stopped being divine consciousness expressing perfectly. This secret revolutionizes everything because it removes the false foundation upon which all problems rest. When there's no separation, there's no one to be healed, nothing to be fixed, no lack to be filled. There's only divine perfection expressing as your true identity and experience. Most people spend their lives trying to get God to change their circumstances. Joel revealed that circumstances change automatically when you change your sense of identity. Stop identifying with limitation and limitations disappear. Stop believing in separation and experience the oneness that dissolves all problems. This isn't theory requiring years of study. This is immediate spiritual fact awaiting your recognition. The moment you truly see yourself as divine consciousness, your world begins reflecting this truth. Problems that seemed impossible dissolve naturally. This is the mistake 99% make and the recognition that sets you free. Marcus built a successful business but lost everything in the economic crash. Facing bankruptcy and family breakdown, he discovered Joel's teachings. Instead of desperately trying to rebuild, he spent time recognizing his true identity as divine consciousness, expressing infinite abundance and wisdom. As this recognition deepened over several weeks, opportunities appeared seemingly from nowhere. Former competitors offered partnerships. Banks extended unexpected credit lines. His family relationships healed as stress dissolved. Marcus didn't create success. He recognized he had never been separate from infinite supply. The transformation wasn't overnight magic, but the natural result of aligning with spiritual truth. As Marcus stopped identifying with the struggling businessman and recognized himself as divine consciousness, his entire experience shifted to match this truth. Abundance flowed because he recognized his oneness with infinite source. This pattern repeats in every area of life. When you change your identity from struggling human to divine consciousness expressing perfectly, your circumstances naturally align with this recognition. You don't manipulate conditions. You embody the truth that dissolves all sense of limitation and lack. Linda suffered from anxiety attacks that controlled her life for over a decade. Traditional treatments provided temporary relief, but the fear always returned. Through Joel's teachings, she learned to recognize her true nature as divine consciousness, which cannot experience fear because it is perfect peace. During panic attacks, instead of fighting the symptoms, Linda would silently recognize, "I am divine consciousness. Fear is impossible to my true nature." This wasn't positive thinking, but recognition of spiritual fact. As this truth became real to her, the anxiety lost its power to disturb her peace. Over 3 months of consistent recognition, Linda's anxiety completely dissolved. She didn't overcome fear. She recognized that as divine consciousness, fear had no reality in her being. The chemical reactions, racing thoughts, and physical symptoms simply stopped appearing when their false foundation was removed. Linda's transformation showed that psychological healing follows the same principle as physical healing. When you recognize your true identity as divine consciousness, all conditions contrary to divine perfection naturally dissolve. This is practical mysticism producing real-world transformation. Robert faced a lawsuit that threatened to destroy his reputation and finances. Lawyers predicted years of costly litigation with uncertain outcomes. Desperate and overwhelmed, Robert discovered Joel's approach of recognizing divine consciousness as his true identity, beyond all human conflicts and limitations. Instead of fighting the legal battle through human methods alone, Robert spent daily time in recognition of his oneness with divine justice and intelligence. He didn't deny the legal reality, but refused to accept it as his spiritual reality. This recognition brought unexpected clarity and peace. Within 2 months, the opposing party unexpectedly withdrew the lawsuit entirely. New evidence surfaced that completely vindicated Robert's position. His lawyers called it miraculous, but Robert understood it was the natural result of recognizing his identity as divine consciousness expressing perfect justice. The key was not praying for legal victory, but recognizing that as divine consciousness, he existed beyond human conflict. This recognition aligned his experience with spiritual truth. When you know yourself as divine consciousness, all discord dissolves because harmony is your natural state. These transformations reveal the power of Joel's secret. Stop identifying with human limitation and recognize your true nature as divine consciousness. This isn't visualization or positive thinking. It's recognition of spiritual fact that transforms your entire world from within. The mistake 99% make is believing they're separate from divine perfection, then trying to bridge that imaginary gap through prayer, effort, and struggle. Joel revealed that recognizing your oneness with divine consciousness dissolves the gap that never existed. Problems disappear when their false foundation is removed. This recognition works because it's true. You are not a human seeking divine help. You are divine consciousness expressing perfectly as individual being. When this becomes real to you, your entire experience transforms to match this truth. This is why Joel's students experienced consistent transformation. If these transformation stories inspire you, like this video to help others find these teachings, subscribe for more Joel Goldsmith wisdom, and comment. What healing journey resonated most with you? Beyond the foundational recognition, Joel taught specific techniques to deepen this spiritual understanding. The first is conscious contact, setting aside time daily to commune with the divine consciousness that you are. This isn't prayer, but intimate recognition of your true identity. Find 15 minutes each morning and evening for this practice. Sit quietly and recognize, I am divine consciousness expressing perfectly right now. Don't think about problems or desires. Simply rest in recognition of your spiritual identity. This builds the foundation for transformation. As you practice this recognition, you'll notice a shift in your entire day. Challenges become less disturbing because you're anchored in truth rather than appearances. People respond differently to you because you're expressing from your divine nature rather than human limitation and fear. This practice isn't meditation in the traditional sense. It's conscious recognition of what you already are. The more you commune with your divine nature, the more your human experience reflects this truth. Start with these 15-minute sessions and watch your life transform naturally. The second technique Joel taught is instant recognition during daily challenges. The moment you notice any form of discord, worry, fear, anger, or lack, immediately recognize, this is not possible in divine consciousness, which I am. Don't analyze the problem. Recognize your immunity to it. This practice interrupts the momentum of negative experience and redirects your attention to spiritual truth. Instead of getting caught in the drama of human problems, you anchor yourself in the peace of your divine nature. This shift in identification changes everything instantly. For example, when facing financial pressure, instead of worrying about money, recognize, divine consciousness lacks nothing. As divine consciousness, I am complete and supplied. Hold this recognition until you feel the shift from anxiety to peace. Peace indicates you've touched truth. This isn't denial of practical responsibilities, but recognition of your spiritual foundation. Handle practical matters from this foundation of knowing your true nature, and solutions appear naturally. You act from strength rather than desperation, wisdom rather than fear. Joel also taught the technique of spiritual discernment, distinguishing between what's true in divine consciousness and what only appears real to human sense. This develops your ability to see through problems to the spiritual reality that dissolves them automatically. When faced with any challenge, ask, is this condition possible in divine consciousness? Since divine consciousness is perfect life, intelligence, love, and abundance, anything contrary to these qualities has no reality in your true being. This recognition alone begins the dissolution process. Practice this throughout your day. When you see discord anywhere, in yourself, others, or world situations, recognize it as impossible in divine consciousness. Don't try to fix appearances. Recognize their unreality in spirit. This develops your spiritual vision and practical transformation ability. This discernment becomes natural with practice. You automatically see through human limitations to spiritual truth. Problems lose their power to disturb you because you recognize their unreality in consciousness. This recognition eventually manifests as changed conditions in your daily experience. The advanced technique Joel taught is recognition for others, seeing their true identity as divine consciousness regardless of appearances. When someone appears sick, struggling, or problematic, silently recognize their spiritual perfection. This recognition helps them and deepens your own understanding. This isn't trying to change people, but recognizing what's eternally true about them. See beyond their human struggles to their divine nature. Hold this recognition silently, without telling them what you're doing. Your recognition of their truth supports their own awakening to it. Practice this with family members, co-workers, even people in news stories who appear to be suffering. Recognize, this person is divine consciousness expressing perfectly. What appears contrary to this has no reality in their true being. This develops unconditional love and practical healing ability. As you consistently practice these techniques, daily recognition, instant redirection, spiritual discernment, and recognition for others, your entire consciousness transforms. You naturally identify with divine perfection rather than human limitation. This shift in identity revolutionizes every aspect of your life experience. Many people struggle with doubt when practicing Joel's teachings. The human mind resists recognizing divine perfection when circumstances appear contrary. This doubt seems to validate the problem and invalidate the spiritual truth. Joel addressed this common obstacle with profound wisdom. Doubt arises because you're trying to reconcile spiritual truth with physical appearances. Joel taught that you don't need to understand how recognition works. You simply need to practice it consistently. Truth operates by its own power, not your understanding of it. When doubt appears, don't fight it or feel guilty. Simply return to recognition. I am divine consciousness. Doubt about this has no reality in my true being. Treat doubt like any other false condition. Recognize its impossibility in your divine nature. Start with small challenges where recognition feels easier, then gradually apply it to larger situations. As you experience transformation in minor areas, your confidence in spiritual truth grows. This confidence makes recognition more natural even in difficult circumstances. Another common challenge is impatience with results. People expect instant transformation and become discouraged when changes seem slow. Joel taught that recognition works at the level of consciousness first, then appears in visible form. The timing belongs to divine intelligence, not human desire. Focus on the immediate result of recognition, the peace that comes from knowing truth. This peace indicates that consciousness has shifted even before external changes appear. The shift in consciousness is the healing, and visible results follow naturally in divine timing. Continue recognizing truth regardless of appearances. Sometimes conditions seem worse before they improve as false foundations dissolve. Trust the process of consciousness change rather than demanding specific timing or methods. Divine intelligence knows how to translate recognition into visible transformation. Remember that you're not trying to make something happen. You're recognizing what's already true. This removes the pressure of performance and allows truth to operate naturally. Relax into recognition rather than striving for results. This relaxation actually accelerates the manifestation process. The deepest challenge many face is guilt about past mistakes or current limitations. They believe their errors disqualify them from divine recognition. This guilt blocks the very recognition that would dissolve the sense of separation causing their problems. Joel addressed this with profound compassion. Your past mistakes were made by the false sense of self that believed in separation. Your true identity as divine consciousness is eternally pure and perfect. Guilt exists only in the illusion of separation, not in the reality of your divine nature. When guilt arises, recognize. Divine consciousness has never made a mistake and cannot be guilty. As divine consciousness, I am eternally pure and perfect. Don't analyze past errors. Recognize your present spiritual reality. This recognition dissolves guilt and its effects. Forgiveness becomes automatic when you recognize that the one who seemed to sin was never your true identity. Divine consciousness expressing as you is incapable of error. This recognition frees you from the past and opens you to present perfection. These challenges dissolve when you remember that recognition isn't something you do perfectly. It's truth acknowledging itself through you. You don't create divine consciousness, you discover it. You don't achieve perfection, you accept it. This removes the burden of performance and allows natural transformation. The key is consistency rather than perfection. Even imperfect recognition of divine truth transforms consciousness gradually. Each moment of recognition, however brief or uncertain, contributes to your awakening. Progress is certain because you're recognizing what's already true. Start where you are with whatever understanding you have. Recognition grows through practice, not perfect comprehension. As you consistently return to spiritual truth despite challenges, obstacles lose their power to block your recognition. Truth eventually outweighs all appearances. If these challenge-breaking techniques speak to your heart, like to support this content, subscribe for advanced spiritual practices, and comment. Which obstacle are you ready to transform now? Advanced students learn to maintain recognition during intense daily activities. Joel taught that divine consciousness isn't something you contact occasionally, but your continuous identity. Whether working, parenting, or handling crises, you remain divine consciousness expressing perfectly. Practice silent recognition throughout your day. I am divine consciousness expressing as perfect wisdom in this situation. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you act from your divine nature rather than human anxiety or limitation. Decisions flow from wisdom rather than fear. In business meetings, silently know yourself as divine intelligence expressing perfect understanding and communication. In family conflicts, recognize yourself as divine love expressing harmony. In health challenges, identify as divine life expressing perfect vitality. This transforms your experience from within. This constant recognition eventually becomes natural. You automatically identify with divine perfection rather than human struggle. Your consciousness operates from truth rather than appearances. This continuous spiritual awareness revolutionizes your entire life experience and effectiveness. Joel taught advanced practitioners to recognize divine consciousness as the only presence and power. This means acknowledging no competing force, no opposing power, no alternative reality. Divine consciousness alone exists, expressing as all true experience everywhere, always. This recognition dissolves the false belief in opposing powers that seem to create problems. When you recognize divine consciousness as the only reality, evil loses its apparent power because it has no true foundation. Problems exist only in the illusion of separation from divine perfection. Practice recognizing divine consciousness in everyone and everything around you. See divine intelligence expressing as your co-workers, divine life as nature, divine love as all true relationships. This recognition transforms your environment by changing your perception of it completely. This advanced recognition requires spiritual maturity because it challenges all human appearances. Yet it produces the deepest transformations because it operates from absolute truth rather than relative improvement. When divine consciousness becomes your only recognized reality, miracles become natural. The ultimate practice Joel taught is living as divine consciousness rather than as a human seeking spiritual truth. This means identifying completely with your divine nature and allowing it to express naturally through your individual being without effort or strain. This doesn't mean denying practical responsibilities, but fulfilling them from divine consciousness. You work, love, create, and serve as expressions of divine perfection rather than struggling humans trying to achieve it. This shift transforms both your experience and your effectiveness completely. Signs of this advanced state include natural peace regardless of circumstances, effortless solutions to complex problems, and healing presence that affects everyone around you. You become a transparent window for divine consciousness to express freely and powerfully. This isn't a distant goal, but your present possibility. Begin living as divine consciousness now, even if your recognition seems incomplete. The more you identify with your true nature, the more naturally it expresses through your daily experience and transforms everything. Advanced practitioners also learn to handle world situations from divine consciousness. Instead of reacting emotionally to global challenges, they recognize divine consciousness as the only true power governing all existence. This recognition contributes to world healing and personal peace. When you see apparent evil or tragedy in the world, recognize divine consciousness is the only presence and power here. What appears contrary to divine good has no reality in true being. This isn't denial, but recognition of spiritual fact that dissolves false appearances. This practice requires deep spiritual maturity and understanding. You're not ignoring human suffering, but addressing it at the level of consciousness where real transformation occurs. Your recognition of truth helps dissolve the collective illusions that seem to create global problems. As more people practice this recognition, the world experience shifts toward greater harmony. You contribute to global healing not through political activism alone, but through consciousness transformation that addresses problems at their root in false belief and separation. The complete transformation Joel taught results in natural, effortless living from divine consciousness. You no longer struggle to overcome problems because you recognize they never had reality in your true being. Life becomes expression rather than effort. creativity rather than struggle. In this state, you automatically respond to every situation from divine wisdom, love, and intelligence. Solutions appear naturally because you're not seeking them from limitation, but expressing them from infinite consciousness. Problems dissolve before they fully form because their foundation doesn't exist. Your presence becomes healing to others without trying to heal them. Simply being yourself as divine consciousness creates an atmosphere where others remember their own true nature. This is the natural result of complete identification with spiritual truth rather than human appearances. This transformation doesn't make you otherworldly, but profoundly practical. You handle material responsibilities more effectively because you operate from infinite intelligence rather than limited human understanding. Divine consciousness is infinitely practical when allowed to express naturally. This complete transformation affects every relationship in your life. Others respond differently to you because you're expressing from divine love rather than human need or fear. Conflicts resolve naturally because you see only divine perfection in everyone, regardless of appearances. Your family relationships heal as you stop trying to change people and simply recognize their true nature as divine consciousness. Professional relationships improve because you express divine intelligence and integrity naturally. Even casual encounters become opportunities for divine consciousness to touch others. You become a beneficial presence wherever you go, not through effort, but through natural expression of your true nature. People feel peaceful around you because you're anchored in peace. They experience clarity in your presence because you're expressing from divine intelligence. This doesn't mean everyone will understand or appreciate you, but those who are ready will be deeply touched by the divine consciousness expressing through you. Your life becomes service to the awakening of truth in others through simply being yourself. The ultimate realization Joel taught is that divine consciousness is not something you attain, but something you are. All spiritual practice is simply the gradual recognition and acceptance of your eternal identity. The journey is from believing in separation to knowing your oneness with divine perfection. This recognition transforms your entire relationship with life, from struggle to celebration, from effort to expression, from seeking to being. You discover that what you sought outside yourself is your very nature. What you tried to become, you already are. What you hope to achieve is your present reality. Living from this understanding brings profound fulfillment because you're no longer trying to get something from life, but allowing life to express through you as divine consciousness. Every moment becomes an opportunity for truth to reveal itself more fully through your experience. This is the secret Joel discovered and shared. You are not a human being having spiritual experiences. You are divine consciousness having a human experience. When this becomes real to you, everything changes because you're no longer imprisoned by false identity. The spiritual mistake 99% of people make is believing they're separate from divine perfection and then trying to bridge that imaginary gap. Joel Goldsmith revealed the truth that dissolves all problems. You are divine consciousness expressing perfectly right now. Recognition of this truth transforms everything automatically. This isn't theory requiring years of study, but immediate spiritual fact awaiting your acceptance. The moment you truly recognize your identity as divine consciousness, your world begins reflecting this truth. Problems that seemed impossible dissolve naturally because their false foundation disappears. Start today with simple recognition. I am divine consciousness expressing perfectly. Practice this throughout your day, especially when challenges appear. Return to this truth repeatedly until it becomes more real than appearances. Your consistent recognition will revolutionize your entire experience. If your spiritual understanding expanded through these Joel Goldsmith secrets, like this video, subscribe for more transformative teachings, and comment, I am transformed, to confirm your new path.